of managing the crisis. But the data tells us a very different story. The data reveals a massive multi-billion-dollar blunder. Keep keep America poor again. We're already trillions of dollars in debt. Let's see how bad this gets, bro. Let's see how bad this gets because I don't want to spoil it, but it's terrible. The numbers are terrible. We're gonna break down the shocking numbers that provide the most expensive things that we're about to look at. And we're gonna prove that we can do for a person experiencing homelessness far more with far less cost if we focused on the solution instead of treating the symptoms. And the cheapest, most effective, and most humane solution is the one that we've systematically ignored. And we're going to cover all of the what ifs that people throw out there as to why they ignore them. You own eyes can see it. Yes, sir. Take a walk, yes, sir. Now, this isn't a story about bleeding hearts versus fiscal responsibility. That's not where we're going here. And this is a story of how those things are actually one and the same. Okay. But we get the money when we get to it. And you have to understand that the scale of the problem when we get ready to start using the money is a whole lot different than what you might believe. Because based on the latest data from the 2024 point in time count, I had to go get statistics. I had to go get statistics, y'all. On any given night in the United States, more than 771,000 people are experiencing homelessness. That number is the highest since data collection began, representing a staggering 18% surge in a single year. I'm gonna let that sink in for a minute. He said, my neighbor just bought a new truck. I can't believe the sticker price was 120,000. Oh, he bought a Cybertruck. He bought a Cybertruck. Now, since that sunk in a little bit, this isn't a stagnant problem. It's an accelerating crisis that has now surpassed the levels that we saw during the Great Recession, back when Michael was a kid. Now, for many, the word homeless conjures a specific image, but the reality is far more diverse and tragic. The share of children under 18 experiencing homelessness jumped 33% just in 1 year, the largest increase of any age group that we've had. And that means approximately 150,000 of those individuals that are homeless are children and part of a family unit that has lost its foundation. And this is a devastating consequence of experiencing pandemic era protections and skyrocketing housing costs. He said, I don't know, but he's an engineer at Tesla. So he's got the money. Well, shit, if he's an engineer at Tesla, he should have a company truck. He shouldn't have to buy it. I thought he would buy one for sure, but he got some kind of GMC Denali truck. Oh shit! Oh, so he know exactly how much power that Tesla truck is gonna run. He said, "Nah, I'm straight." Now, hidden within the tragedy is another crisis that's quickly becoming a catastrophe. And Dylan brought it to us, to our attention earlier this week. And ironically, I was supposed to be covering this topic from last week. So he and I were on the same page with this. The fastest growing segment of homeless population is older adults. According to HUD's 2024 data, about 20% of the entire homeless population, which is over 146,000 people, are 55 or older. And that number is projected to nearly triple by 2030. And these are our parents and grandparents, former teachers, construction workers, and primarily veterans, and people who have worked their whole lives only to be pushed onto the streets by a single medical bill, that death of a spouse, or an eviction notice that served as a final crushing blow. He said, I'll take that. He said, you look like a time traveling brother from 1865 who just found a pair of sunglasses. I definitely, I definitely have a whole new look, and that is actually, would it be? I thought it was like the 1920s, but I guess every 100 years it kind of rolls back around. But yeah, that does kind of make it. He says in California, the state spent $24 billion in the past 5 years to fight homelessness, but the number of homeless people went up again. What's up with that? Because they did not actually fight the homelessness itself. They fought the visibility of homelessness. So they spent $25 billion getting homeless people out of the sight of tourists and getting the homeless people out of the common public areas like parks and sidewalks and parking garages and stuff like that, but not actually solving the problem of the people being homeless. And we're going to be going into the difference between the two. Now, you just talked about a $24 billion budget. I'm about to talk to you about something bigger than that across the United States, and something equally smaller than that that could be done across the United States that will completely end homelessness permanently if it was done correctly. Michael says the 1920s. I remember the soap lines. Artists at Christmas time. Use a newspaper to stuff with my fans to keep warm. He covered for way back in the day. Yeah, I know, 24 billion now. I need to move to Cali to get the money. No, you don't need to move to Cali, bro. $24 billion was spent to deal with a homeless population problem. $24 billion wasn't given to any one individual. So you got to think about the dynamic there. So if you spread $24 billion across, how many billions of people y'all got in California? They didn't spend a lot on each individual person. It's like adding scaffolding to your building to hide your building's ugliness. Exactly. That's what the $24 billion was exactly used for. It was like hiding the ugly side of the country by spending billions upon billions of dollars to move the homeless people out of the natural sight of people's normal travel. Yeah, Michael. Oh, Michael's 71 years old, 72 right now. He just had a birthday on the 14th, November 14th. Nearly half of all renters in the country are already cost burden. And cost burden means that they are spending more than 30% of their income just on housing. Now, before we go any further, I just want to talk about how you don't have to be in the lower income status to be in this dynamic. Because if you're making $250,000 a year and you're spending 100 or 210,000 a year on your house, you're still spending more than half. Cost burden is claiming that you're spending more than 30% of your income. So if you make 100,000 a year and you're spending 30,000 on your house, you're right there on the cusp. If you're making 75,000 a year and you're spending 30,000 on your house, you're hurt. If you're making 50,000 a year and you're spending 30,000 on your house, you're suffering. You got to understand the dynamic here. But then when you think about some houses in some places in the United States are upward of $5,000 a month for the rent. That's 50,000, 60,000 a year. 60,000 a year and you're making $150,000, that's still almost half of your income, right? And that is a very huge problem. At this rate, 10 years down the line, we all finna be homeless. You ain't lying? Yeah, you telling the exact truth and we don't make a change. But for older adults, the situation is even more precarious because with millions living on fixed incomes, unable to keep up as costs spike, getting side jobs at Walmart as a door greeter. They are living on a financial knife's edge. One unexpected expense away from joining the growing population of seniors sleeping in cars and shelters or on the cold pavement. And we're creeping up on wintertime. He said, we were just getting over the government. What he said, GFA, Great Army of the Republic, and the Great Depression came along. Everyone's poor. And then we just had that, 43-day shutdown, and everyone's even more poor. Had that lasted another 20 days, could you imagine how many government agents would have gotten evicted out of their homes? Think about it. If they would have had the shutdown run through January 15th, all of those government workers would have been outdoors. Millions of feds would have been outdoors. But had to loan the kids out to the neighbors just to get by. Back in those days, that's what would have happened. Selling your children into indentured servitude. Now, this is the human scale of the crisis. It's not an abstract policy debate. It's a terrifying reality for hundreds of thousands of our neighbors, because we just experienced it again recently. And you have to think, I've told you guys before, 3 consecutive paychecks, and any successful person living paycheck to paycheck will find themselves homeless. Like the homeless people they look down upon when they step over them on the sidewalks when they walk down the street. The people that they quickly power walk away from when they get out of their cars, when those homeless people are looking for a quick buck. You got to understand the dynamic. That could be you. All it took was being a government worker for a 3-month shutdown with no pay. He says sisters did the laundry for many families. Yeah. And the brothers did the lawns, walked dogs, painted houses, fixed toilets, fixed windows, and cleaned gutters. Like, yeah. Worked on cars. They were called under the oak tree mechanics. The richest nation on earth and the poorest population. Oh yeah, we're about to get into that. Is that man, I sometimes feel like I should have been born 60 years ago. If I had, I would have been a proud owner of a mansion with just $20,000. Well, that depends, because if you would have been born 60 years ago and you would have had too dark of a tan, you would have been getting beat up for that mansion. They might have would have burned that mansion down. You know, maybe if you was born in the north somewhere, that might have would have worked out for you. But if you grew up in the south with too dark of a tan, then you wouldn't have been able to get too close to that mansion. I was curious about the gold bar. Then pawn shops gave me $2,500 cash. Yeah, they cheated you, because a gold bar right now is like $4,000, more or less. The fact is that by the ounce, what's gold right now, Michael? Like 4,700 an ounce. So if you had a whole bar, bro, you probably had like 40 grand, and they only gave you $2,500 for it. You better go do OJ and get your stuff back. Oh, why you think they were so quick to give it to you? They were so quick to give you $2,500 for a gold brick, because you didn't know. Had you knew, you'd have been like 50 grand. A gold brick this size is expensive, because an ounce of gold is smaller than a ring. An ounce of gold is real cheap. Not real cheap, it's real expensive. It's like almost $4,000 per ounce, right? Ounce. Look at what he's telling you, $4,099 for an ounce. Now, when you think about 1,000 ounces, you would have had almost $400,000, bro, in that brick that you got $2,500 for. Yeah, I had 3 levels. Don't go to the pawn shop with them. Oh, it's only a 1 ounce bar. He still ripped you off. a 1 ounce bar in a package, he still ripped you off because he took $1,500 out of you because it's worth right now $4,099. Think about that. Look, we got facts and details on this show. Uh, when y'all come over here, we're gonna hit y'all with the facts, with the scoop and the skinny. Now, our primary response, our default strategy in city after city when it pertains to, yeah, he sold it. He said he sold the brick, he sold the 1 ounce gold bar and got $2,500 for it. And I'm trying to figure out why. I would have did some research first. My ancestors really took the worst travel deal in history, and I'm still paying the fee. Look, now everybody was told way back in the 1600s, oh yeah, you get this free Caribbean cruise, bro, first class to America. And we got here, and it wasn't a round trip cruise; it was a one trip ticket. I'm pissed off, man. Now, let's think. Let's think. Uh, the strategy that is used multiple times over has been to treat the humanitarian disaster as a law enforcement problem. That is what we have always done. Uh, Actually, no, not too many people are even doing anything for homeless at the end of the day. And you really would not, if you were building at-risk housing facilities for homeless individuals, it would look like single family homes or apartment complexes. They would not be, because people don't donate to nonprofits that are helping with homeless situations, because people with money feel like homeless people don't deserve to be picked up, and then people who are struggling to pay their bills don't feel like they should sacrifice $10 to help somebody who's sleeping on the sidewalk because they feel like that person screwed up their life. Then when you lose your damn house, you're going to be on the sidewalk wishing somebody would give you a place to go. Now, men have it harder than women. While women do have issues, men have it harder than women because women have women's shelters, battered women's shelters and stuff to that effect. They don't have resources like that. If you're not a veteran as a guy, there are very few places for you to go. Now you're sitting out there on the side of the road wishing that you had a place to go. You know, all it takes is for too many bad things to happen at one time. You say, well, why are they homeless? It doesn't matter why they're homeless, because some could have been homeless because their house burned down, a natural disaster. They could have been out of work for 6 months. They could have, for some situations, gone to jail and got out of jail and now they don't have a place to stay. They could have lost their job, whether it was downsizing, being furloughed, being fired for inappropriate behavior. It could have caught a felony or something. It doesn't matter what it was. They could have been a college student, and then after they graduated, they couldn't find a place to live. They couldn't get a job. What matters is that right now they don't have a place to go, and we spend more money sifting them around, like shuffling a deck of cards on the table, than what we do actually resolving the problem by picking them up and giving them a place to go and giving them a way to start off. I bet you were happy to get that cash, buddy. America talks about opportunity, but the way we treat our homeless makes it clear how far the promise still falls short. Well, you do make a good point, because in order for, you have to recognize that the opportunity has the double dynamic. Capitalism is capitalizing off of somebody else's loss. So the top 1% will be the polar opposite of the bottom 1%. Because there is no, we barely have a middle class, right? Our working class, which is the poor class, which is the lower middle class, upper lower class, is at almost 80,000 a year, which is like $1,765 a week income. And if you make less than that, you're in the poor class. Think about that. Homeless, drugs, mental issues. You know that homelessness typically can lead to drugs and mental issues because the hypervigilance over extended period of time, the stress of not being able to get a good night's sleep, always keeping your head on the swivel because you're afraid of being robbed, attacked, mistreated, or arrested while trying to find a safe place to be. You're worried about your stuff while you're asleep. You're worried about leaving your stuff behind when you got to move around. And then you're trying to figure out how you're going to get something to eat. You develop a lot of mental issues. And then a lot of the times people use drugs and alcohol as an escape from the stuff that they can't control, which doesn't make it any better because now they're considered a drunk or a junkie, and they're devalued even further. And they're only doing that because they don't have another outlet for the catastrophic failure that they're in. It is a bad choice on top of a bad choice, but the fact is that if they had a better place to be, they would have the ability to improve instead of continuing to spiral. Hypergrievances is a real problem. Um, that makes sense to be on drugs or drunk to not think about it. Yeah. They say matter can't be created or destroyed, only changed in forms. America treats homelessness the same way. It doesn't solve it, it just rearranges and hides it. You're right, but the other dynamic is that they make a lot more money off of getting rid of the problem instead of solving the problem. And I'm about to get into that and tell you guys the details, the ins and outs of how serious this situation is. He said, I learned all my years, it really won't make a difference in most homelessness. It could at least about 95% of it, because there are going to be a select few individuals that do not want to do better. They don't want responsibility and they don't want to improve, and those individuals will always end up living off the land. But for a largest majority of individuals who don't want to live like that, but they don't have a choice, if those individuals had a way out, they would take that way out. But a lot of the times the way out is so stringent. Like, for example, homeless shelters. They have homeless shelters and battered women shelters that have in-house curfews that you got to be in by sunset. If she works or if he works a nighttime job where they get off at 1 o'clock in the morning, you can't go back to the shelter because you've got to be indoors and locked down by a certain time, and you clock out of work 4 hours after that. But you got a full-time job and there's no exception, zero tolerance. So that means that that person, in order for them to maintain that full-time job, they have to sleep on the street and check into a hotel to take a shower so that they can go to work. And if they're spending $3,000 to $5,000 a month to live in a hotel, because they're paying day by day and week to week and all of this stuff, they don't have the capabilities to save up enough money to move out of the hotel. They would need 1 or 2 months of free living so that they can pay off the hotel bill, grab all of their stuff, leave the hotel, and then start saving up money to put stuff into the house that they're, or apartment that they're moving into. There isn't a transition from living in a hotel to living in an apartment. You either do it or you don't. By the way, what's your bedtime? Getting late, brother. I don't have a bedtime, but I do know that I do have a client at like 4:30 a.m. So we're gonna run it until about 3:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is about 2:30 a.m. No, we're gonna run it till about 4:30 for about 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is about 3 a.m. Central Standard Time. So, but based on our current timeline, we can run this another 3 hours. He said, yeah, there's a solution, since it is policies that dictate the system. Let me put it back up there so y'all can see it. It's policies that dictates the system. It is designed this way or enforced this way on purpose. It is, and we're about to get into that. Now, we've decided through policies and budgets, like he said, to police our way out of poverty. And we've deployed officers. We've teared down in camps. We rewrite citations. Now we're dropping down military forces, having a National Guard get in there with AK-47s, forcing these people off of their lands. And in doing so, we've stumbled into the most expensive failure in modern social policies. We've created a mechanism, a machine that is explicitly designed to manage, not solve, homelessness. A machine that runs on billions of taxpayers' dollars and produces nothing but misery. And this is a billion-dollar mistake, right? And we're about to get, I'm going to crunch the numbers for you guys today. Is that California should have given each homeless person about $128,000. So who got the money? Bro, the police got the money. The police, the military, the prison, the warden at the jailhouses, that's who got the money. The judges, the public defenders, that's who got the money. And you're talking about $128,000. I'm about to tell you that about 10% of that might actually solve the damn problem. I'm about to get into it. I'm about to get into it. We just touched the tip of the iceberg. I'm about to get into it. If you want to make a gentleman bet, in 5 years, homelessness will still be there. Well, if the American people don't put in effort to resolve the problem, you're right, it will still be there. It's I agree with you, but it will continue to get worse, just like the government shutdown. That's because ain't nobody changing. People change, and so do their priorities. But when policies is shaped more by shifting interests and growing greed than by compassion, progress becomes the first casualty. Well, progress is, happy Saturday night, Michael. Progress is primarily the responsibility of civilians to make progress, because it's not about the ultra rich taking their billions of dollars and resolve the problem, and it is not about the government fixing the problem. It is about the American people finding a nonprofit organization that would fund something like this, that would put something like this together. And if they put something like that together, everybody throw down on it and make it do what it do. It would be on paper, it would be successful. But when you think about the selfishness of the average American person, the lack of success is not because of government policy. The lack of success is based on the lack of effort from the individual parties. And I'm going to show you why. People only change when they realize their lives suck. People are going to change how they treat homelessness when they experience homelessness. When they don't have and they need, like all the feds that were going to the food bank and the Goodwill in November because of what happened in October, they're going to start, when they got their extra cash, donate stuff to food banks and shit. They're going to be doing food bank drives and everything like that now. They're going to restock the supply so that if they end up back in that same situation in January on the 30th, there'll be some resources there for them. People don't put in on something that they don't feel like they're benefiting from. You'll buy a subscription for some shit and stop thinking about it and pay for a subscription. And you think about the 20 or 30 services that you pay on your cell phone right now, whether, even though you might use them, your PlayStation subscription, your Xbox subscription, your gym membership, your Hulu membership, your YouTube membership, your Spotify, iTunes, the gaming console membership that you get, World of Warcraft or whatever. Each one of those has approximately $20 to $30 worth of monthly service fees. And just like we talked about at the beginning of the show, I actually calculated that if we all put our money in the same spot, we could spend $10 a month and fix the homeless problem permanently. We're going to get to the bottom of that. So the amount of bureaucracy in both government and nonprofit organizations is so overwhelming that real change barely makes it through. Well, no nonprofit organization that I'm aware of is exclusively working. There is one in Florida that is exclusively working towards it, but the rest of them, I have not seen any that are exclusively working towards just trying to fix the homeless problem by actually removing homeless people from the streets. They have a lot of organizations that provide resources to the homeless, which is different from ending homelessness by providing them with actual homes, right? And not too many people want to pay for that. Not too many people want to help a person get off the street and move into what might be a better house than what they've got. Because if you're living in a rundown shack and this homeless person is about to share 4 bedrooms in the suburbs with 3 other homeless people, you're pissed off because their house looks better than your house. That's not what it's about. It's about getting these folks off the street, getting them jobs, and then getting their own place. You know what I mean? But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. Easy to solve homelessness. We're all moving in with you. Y'all not moving in with me. I don't have enough space for 148 billion people, 265. I don't have enough space. But let's look at what does the mistake actually cost. Let's go ahead and crunch these numbers real quick so that I can show you guys exactly how big the problem is, because our taxpayer dollars are paying for it, and how much cheaper it could be if we actually went towards fixing problems. When we see the homeless in camps, our minds often go to the social cost, but we rarely talk about the actual price tag of doing things this way. So let's follow the money because it leads to some truly staggering conclusions. The dominant strategy for dealing with visible homelessness in America isn't housing, it's criminalization. And criminalization is incredibly, absorbably expensive. It's very absurd. Um, Multiple studies have put a number on it. And the uh, cynical churn between homelessness, policing, arrests, and incarceration is estimated to cost taxpayers about $83,000 per homeless individual annually. All right. Maybe we could design an app for people with extra room willing to house one extra person. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. That's one way to do it because there's only 771,000 of us that need a place to go. So we don't need a massive situation to happen. But if we had a broad spectrum scale plan, it would systematically reduce the homeless situation. Now, is he voting 2 homeless people? All right, he's voting. So we could create an app for that. That's a good idea. Now, for someone experiencing chronic homelessness, the cost can be even higher than $83,000 a year per person to be homeless. Let's just pause on that number. $83,000. That's the price that we pay as taxpayers to keep someone in a cycle of desperation. It is not a one-time fee to solve their problem. It is an annual subscription to their suffering, paid for by us, the taxpayers. So I just wanted to point that out right there. $83,000. Where does all the money go? Right? First, there's the cost of the policing, in-camp sweeps, and even military involvement, like y'all seen in what was it, Minneapolis, Chicago, New York. You had a lot of places that they're doing. Cities pour hundreds of millions into strategies that's a little more than a cruel game of whack-a-mole, because in some cases the National Guard has been deployed here in 2025 to clear the MCAPs, a strategy involving tens of millions of dollars in federal spending for logistics and enforcement. And we are paying law enforcement and even soldiers whose time is already stretched thin to act as movers and disposal crews. And what does that sweep accomplish? The evidence is clear. Absolutely not. Doesn't do anything. It's a revolving door, and people are forced to move. They lose what little they have, medication, identification, family photos, and they are scattered, making it indefinitely and infinitely harder for outreach workers to connect to these very same people with service. And the city then budgets for the next sweep, and the cycle begins again. And it is a definition of a failed policy. Hold on, he said, move everyone to Wyoming. They got a lot of land. He said, teeth or no teeth, be tight nut now. All right, we're gonna go through some of these. All right, see, I thought y'all had something impressive to say. Now, the second and maybe the largest hidden expense is our justice and healthcare systems, because for someone on the streets, the emergency room is their only doctor, and minor offenses leads to a cascade of public costs. The data shows that roughly 205,000 unhoused people are booked into jails each year nationwide, and they often have longer stays than the general population, averaging 21 to 32 days per visit and experiencing higher rates of being booked multiple times a year. The daily cost to incarcerate a person can range from over 80 to as high as $548 per day, depending on the facility. Add in frequent high cost emergency room visits, and you have a flood of publicly funded crisis services. And remember, as long as they are incarcerated, they are receiving medical treatment. Some people go to jail just to get out of the cold. Some people go to jail just to get medical treatment because that's the only way they're going to get it. And when you add it all up, you see how we get that shocking number of $83,000 per person. And when you apply it to a scale of the crisis, the total breathtaking expense, you wouldn't believe it. If we did the math, $83,000 per person multiplied by the nearly 771,000 individuals experiencing homelessness results in a potential annual cost of over $63,900,000. And I'm going to say that again. The 771,000 individuals experiencing homelessness cost American taxpayers $63,900,000 per year, right? Homeless industrial complexes. If you build more of those, we would have less homeless people. What about 1 million homeless to Wyoming in 1 million tiny homes in 1 year for $1 billion? Well, you don't have a million homeless people. You only have you have less than 800,000 homeless people, but that is a good idea. That is a lot of taxpayers going to jail. Chain gang, you're definitely right. Housing first approaches work, but only when backed by long-term services. You are correct. And we're going to get to that too. That's why I started late today, because I was covering all of this. Now, that's what we spend on policing, incarceration, emergency services related to homelessness in the United States. And this isn't a moral failure. It's a staggering financial one. So we have created a system where we spend more money to perpetuate homelessness than we could cost to end it. We would save money by ending homelessness, since we're paying for it either way. The financial cost is damning enough, but to truly get the scale of this mistake, you have to understand why this system is so useless. The strategy of criminalization doesn't just fail to solve homelessness, it actively makes it harder for people to escape. It builds walls where there should be bridges. Individuals who go to jail receive misdemeanors and felonies. Jobs don't hire you if you just had a recent misdemeanor within the last 6 months to 2 years. And jobs don't hire you if you've had a felony within the last 5. Housing facilities don't provide you with housing if you've had a misdemeanor within the last 2 to 3 years. And they don't provide you with housing if you've had a felony within the last 5. So if you go to jail for trespass, then you get kicked out of your house, or you don't get a chance to get a new house. If you lose a bunch of days you spend 32 days in jail because you got arrested for being homeless, whatever job you had when you went to jail is not there when you get out of jail. He said, maybe we could take the 800,000 homeless and have them take care of chickens and eggs so that all the Americans could get free eggs and free chickens every week. That wouldn't work because somebody's got to pay the farm to have them on the farm. But imagine for a moment that everything you own fits into a tent. Inside is your ID, your birth certificate, your medication. One morning, you're woken up by heavy machinery and told to leave, ideally at gunpoint in some situations. The chaos, your tent and everything in it during this chaos is thrown into the garbage truck. Your identification is gone, your medication is gone. Now, how do you apply for a job? How do you collect your benefits if you have any? How do you get a prescription refilled? How do you sign up for housing assistance? that when they destroyed the in camp, they destroyed your ability to gain resources. A 2020 study found that law enforcement approaches systemically limit a homeless person's access to services, housing, and jobs. And every citation for panhandling or sleeping in a park comes with a fine that a person can't possibly pay, that is then converted into either probation that they can't pay or community service to work off the debt, which turns into modern day slavery. That unpaid fine can lead to a warrant out for their arrest. That warrant can lead to another arrest, and that arrest creates a larger criminal record. Welcome, President Trump. Oh, you saying what's the solution? You trying to cut to the chase. We have not gotten to the, we're not halfway yet, but we're almost there. The good old the good old my dog ate my ID story, but so true. If they run off with homeless camps and then honestly don't know how they survive. Well, think about this. But this is a true system. Think about this. So a homeless person leaves their stuff in their backpack. You could tell ideally a homeless person faster than you could tell a thief, because a homeless person typically walks around with all of their belongings in their backpack, right? Now, let's take that homeless person backpack, whether it's a Walmart employee that's being a dick, or it's a local convenience store that being hostile, or a cop having a bad day that wants to run you off. Take your stuff, throw it into a trash can, arrest you, take you to jail. Garbage man takes a trash can, it's gone. Your stuff is gone. That's just one way that you lose all your stuff. One homeless person that just got out of jail robs another homeless person who hasn't been in jail in a while and takes all of his stuff, takes his IDs and stuff and throws them in the trash because he doesn't need them, and walks away with whatever debit or credit cards or cash, whatever that he has on hand, whatever resources he could take, and then whatever he can't use, he just chucks it off to the side. The person who got robbed, they lost all of their stuff. They can't go to the bank and make a withdrawal. They don't have their ID. They can't make a phone call. They don't have their phone. They can't get benefits because they don't have proof of their identification. It's a huge issue. So when law enforcement is the one that takes their stuff and destroys it to force them to leave the in camp that they have gotten comfortable with, because truth be told, once they found a place to quote unquote call home off in the woods somewhere out in the cut where nobody can see them, they don't want to leave. And if they've been there for several months, they have established the homestead rights under the Constitution, and the police have got to force them off of that land. It's a serious situation. He says most Americans are too insulted to see this issue. Oh, too insulated. My bad. He says too insulated to see. Oh yeah, very very sheltered. Nobody really questions how our tax dollars are being used, and both parties have overseen systems that leave people behind. That is so true. Oh, I love this one. He says the local churches get so much money. I am curious what they do, why they don't help homeless more. I can tell you why. I have talked to a handful of pastors about this question, and a lot of the leaders of churches specifically declare that at their discretion, the homeless person must officially turn their life over to God before they receive aid from the church. That's why churches don't help homeless people, according to the pastors and preachers and deacons that I've talked to. They collect money from the congregation, expectedly upward of 10% of the population's income, to fund the building fund. Preachers got a Bentley. Churches, if you look at real estate, churches are valued at upward of $3 to $5 million. 10 churches would be about $35 million. I'm about to get into how they could sell the church and help with the homeless population. He said, you finna offend the homeless population. Look, before Dylan could offend somebody, I'm gonna get in there and I'm gonna make it worse. I'm gonna rub it in. Yes, we penalize the poor using cash as the paddle, and rich people have the money to cover those little issues. and life is about the money. See, I don't care. I won't rather. I would rather get my idea out. I hope they get offended and do something. Damn right, Diller. They need to. Maybe they could all use a Tesla robot to stand guard over the tent. You're all right, though. A lot of hard-earned money goes unaccounted for and is misused. Oh no, Elon Musk found what, almost $200 billion of it. He was finding the money. Preachers have Bentleys and Rolls Royces. Yes, sir, they do. Lexuses, Mercedes Benz. You think I'm joking? Go to a Baptist church, go to a Catholic church, go to a Christian church, and go look at the most expensive cars in the parking lot. Now, after the service, hang out in the parking lot next to the most expensive car. I guarantee you the people on the stage drive that car. The poorest people in the building are the people in the audience watching the performance of the church. Those are the ones with the beat up cars in the back row. Those are the ones, those hanging off, duct tape, spackle, rust stains, different colored doors, different color rims. They barely get in there. Some people walking, some of them carpool. Could have, a lot of the congregation don't got car, but you got some very, very expensive cars in that parking lot where those who walk the path of Jesus Christ, Jesus had nothing. So why are you walking the path of Jesus Christ and you got more than everybody else? Sounds more like Solomon to me. Just want to throw that out there. Yeah, that's crazy. The extravagant cars. Tell me about it. Then he gonna say, "Oh, the Lord bless me." No, he didn't. You split the money with your deacons. That's how you got that. You need a date preacher? Well, shoot, all you got to do is go to Bible camp. You'll end up with a preacher. Ever seen their house? Who? Oh, like what's the name of that pastor that had the 52-bedroom mansion? He has $7,000 worth of Louis Vuitton clothes that he bought for himself. What you doing living in a $52 million mansion, a 52-bedroom mansion by yourself? That's the same pastor that had the 3 private jets because the devil will consume him if he rode coach. The rest of the congregation rode coach. But when he flew first class with 3. He flew private jets, not just first class, private jets. IRS audited his ass. I'm trying to figure out what. Well, y'all remember what was it, Reverend Sapp that had held the congregation hostage for $42,000? They put his ass in jail. I'm trying to tell you, these churches be making money, but that's not what this is about. A sure thing. Start a church and name it Church for the Poor. Should pick up a book and start preaching. Well, two or more people are in there doing it in the name of the righteous. The righteous is there with you. Now, the criminal record is nearly impossible barrier to get both jobs and homes with when individuals acquire these records. I mean, these criminal records. No, churches do not pay taxes. And outside of voluntary third-party audits, churches do not get audited by the IRS. You fill out a couple tax forms and you go from a 501c3, which is a publicly funded nonprofit organization, to a church that is a non-government monitored nonprofit, allegedly, where the church can own buildings and cars and anything that they want, and they don't have to talk to the IRS about it. Yeah, you were here before. He said, took your advice and they're getting along just fine now. Thank you. I greatly appreciate you coming back through. Give me advice about my dad not liking my older fiance. Yeah, when I told you to take him out there to the Patriots game. Or no, when I told you, because they both, the Patriots or the Cowboys, whatever, they both had the same favorite football team. And I told you to have them sit down and hang out with one another watching the game. So I'm glad that worked out. I told you that you put 2 dudes in the same room, they'll get over it. Because if your fiance loves you and he's doing the best for you, and your dad loves you and he's doing the best for you. When your dad is hanging around your fiance long enough to see your fiance doing for you what your dad don't have to do no more, your dad can retire from being a dad and just enjoy living life with you and trust this man to do what dad used to do. And fantastic, they'll get along just fine now. Now they're going to back each other up to work towards your best interest. So I'm glad to see that you improved. And a lot of times we provide you guys with advice, and more often than not, people come back and let us know how successful that they are. Interesting. I see why being a mega church is so lucrative. Oh yeah, and being a mega church online, where they're broadcasting their service online. God-fearing people, church-going people will donate money to the church using a PayPal scenario, downloading it online, and the church will be making buku cash from millions of people around the world, if not around the country. And they're not actually changing these people's lives. They make them feel good during a service, but they're not actually changing these people's lives. Kenneth Coleman is his name, the richest televangelist in the world. But he ain't helping the homeless folks. Didn't when Jesus had, what was it, 2 loaves of bread and a fish, and he shared it with 40 men. Now, wouldn't Kenneth Coleman, if he got $3, he would share that with 40 million people? So if he's the richest televangelist in the world, then he should have the homeless population on his salary. Give them jobs, make them ushers and deacons and what's those people that go door to door with the Bible telling you to love God? Pay people to do that. Give them something to do to get them off the street. Where's your basis? We're gonna get into this now. Landlords are gonna see records and deny applications. Like I told you, employers see it and pass over their applications as well. The system designed to clean up the streets is in fact chaining people to the streets instead. So this creates a deep sense of homelessness and distrust. Now, outreach workers, those are the ones that are the very people trying to build relationships with the homeless people, finding their work constantly undone because they found a way to get to the homeless people's migration patterns and then get those homeless people to resources to get those homeless people off of the street some kind of way without providing the homeless people with shelter, because they can't afford shelter because it takes a lot of money to do it. And I'm going to go into the cost of that in just a minute as well. So how can you trust a system that sends someone to offer you help one day, then that same system sends someone else to throw your belongings in the trash the next day? Of 169 people offered shelter during in-camp closures in Minneapolis, only 9 accepted. It's not because they don't want help. It's because a system of sweeps poisons the well of trust, because you also have to understand that these shelters have strict rules of entry and exit. And if your work life does not meet those rules, you end up back out on the street. They have meetings that you have to attend to. They have stuff that you have to go and do. And if you don't perform because you got a full-time job, they put you out on the street. Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, definitely. Now, this entire approach also completely misunderstands the root cause of homelessness. People aren't on the street by choice. They're on the street because they lack choices. The problem at its core is a lack of affordable housing, stagnant wages, and a healthcare system that can bankrupt a family. Shoot, I've got an outpatient spinal operation that costs me $5,000 every 3 months. It's $20,000 a year just to sit up straight in this chair. And it's not covered by the health insurance. No amount of policing can fix that. Writing a ticket for sleeping in public doesn't magically create an affordable apartment. In fact, it does the opposite. The stress and trauma of living on the streets, compounded by the constant harassment, actively worsens mental and physical health, which is going to be the reason why they're going to start smoking. They might start with cigarettes and progress to something stronger. They're going to start drinking. They're going to start with beer and then progress to something stronger. Some might even start taking pain medication to make the pain stop, and then they're going to start taking pain medication to make the emotional pain stop, and that's when addiction gets worse. It's a vicious feedback loop. Homelessness makes people sick, and sickness makes it hard, even harder, to escape homelessness. Now, our system of criminalization just pours gasoline on the fire. And the ultimate proof of its failure is it doesn't even achieve its superficial goal of making homelessness less visible by constantly shoveling and shuffling people from one block to the next, from one city to the next, buying them plane tickets and flying them out of this city so that they can land in another city and overpopulate another city. We are simply spreading the issue around. It's a policy of out of sight for a little while. This whole approach is built on a fallacy that if we make being homeless unpleasant enough, people will simply choose to stop being homeless. But that's like trying to cure a disease by punishing the patient for having symptoms. It's illogical, it's cruel, and as we've seen, it's a colossal waste of money. So if the billions of dollars that is the mistake is spending a fortune on criminalized poverty, what's an alternative? Michael asked me earlier, what's the solution? It's a concept that for years was dismissed as a radical fantasy. And it is still being dismissed, which is I would love to do this. And if I had the type of financial backing to do something like this, I would flagship it, no doubt. But it is now being proven in city after city as a pragmatic, data-driven solution that they are not yet mainstreaming. It is called housing first. You treat the problem first and then work on the symptoms. And actually, a buddy of mine was talking to me about that. We were working on this exact idea back in 2017. But it's hard to do if you're paying for it out of your own pocket. If the nation got together and did something about it, it would effectively work. But a select few, 15, 20, 30 people think, oh yeah, this is a fantastic idea. It's hard to accomplish. The idea is deceptively simple. It flips the traditional model of homeless services on its head. And for decades, the staircase approach was the standard. You had to earn your way to housing. First get clean, then get a job. Then maybe you'd qualify for a temporary shelter. And only after you solved all your other problems were you deemed ready for a home, is the mantra that other people work towards. And I've been saying for the longest period of time, housing first is completely backwards in this model. The idea is that a home isn't a reward for recovery, it is the foundation for it. How can you hold down a job if you don't have a place to sleep and shower? How can you manage health conditions without a refrigerator for your insulin? Housing first provides a person with permanent housing as quickly as possible. Then you surround them with voluntary support services, case managers, mental health counseling, job training. The housing isn't conditional, but a stable home provides the platform for which a person can finally begin to address those issues. So instead of the pastors and deacons and preachers in the church saying, oh, he has to get closer to God before I help him, why don't you help him so that the first thing he does is thank God for sending somebody to help him? And then his devotion to repaying the gratitude will lead him down the path to the proclaimed righteousness that you wanted him to go to, instead of forcing a person through suffering to first abandon suffering without knowing how to, and then devote themselves to a force they haven't experienced yet when they already spent a lifetime believing that they were abandoned by that exact same force. How can I trust you to save me? I have to put everything in you and jump, knowing that you left me here. The ideology is reversed. Let me take you from over there. And now that I have brought you to safety, trust me, this will be just fine. It's easier to earn trust that way. He says, you're right. In other countries, housing first was tried, and it does work. We we aren't doing it in America yet, but we need to. Now I know what you might be thinking. You're just giving away free apartments, and that's why Americans don't donate to nonprofits that work like this. That must be incredibly expensive, and no one person believes that if they donate enough money to the charities that work on this, that they would actually make a difference. And some people believe, oh, they're just going to use it as a drug den and tear the place up. They're not going to value it or appreciate it. You're writing off the person before you give them a chance to prove to you that they will value what you've done for them. And at the end of the day, if you're not going to give them a chance, how can you expect rehabilitation? How can you expect redemption if you're going to continue to condemn the person in the present for actions done in the past? How can a person turn over a new leaf and become a new person if you will forever condemn them for 10, 15, 30 years ago action? What they do today, what they're doing right now, what they want to do today, what they're trying to accomplish right now, that is who they are. What they've been working on over the past 12 months, that's what they've been trying to become. If you give them the opportunity to change, the only way that you can determine that they did not appreciate it is if they show you after they've gotten it that they didn't appreciate it. But you can't pre-assume that they're not going to appreciate it. That's just like the stereotype that all black people steal. And then when you go into a convenience store, you got that Arab guy following you all over the convenience store. When you got more money in your pocket than that man's salary, and all you went in there for was drinks, but nothing is written in English, so you trying to look to see what you're trying to find, and they're going to give you a bad time. Stereotyping an individual that they're going to be a problem before they have the opportunity to be a problem starts a problem. If you assume that they're a good person before they start doing something dastardly, then you might get good results. But this is where we come back to the shocking financial reality. Remember that $83,000 per person that it costs to criminalize one person for 1 year. The average cost of providing permanent supportive housing, including all the wraparound services, averages about $22,000 per person. So remember earlier in tonight's show, and I'm going to go back to your comment and I'm going to put it up on the screen because you had a fantastic idea when you were talking to me about where that $24 billion went from California. And I told you that it is actually way cheaper than that when you suggested to put $128,000, I do believe it was, right here. California should have given each homeless person about $128,000. That's what you said. But $22,000 a year would support 100% of the homeless population with wraparound services on average, which means that almost 8 to 10 people would have been covered by your $128,000 per person for just the California folk. With $24 billion that California spent, $22 billion would have covered 22 million people or 22,000 people, something to that effect, I believe. Hold on, let's crunch the math. Let's crunch the math. Wait, I think I got a calculator right here. Let's crunch the math because this is an unseen truth that people don't pay attention to. You said $24 billion. All right. And it costs $22,000 on average to get these folks off the street permanently, right? That would have been 1,090,990 people that would have been helped off that $24 billion from California. Just California, not the entire United States, just California. Okay, that's crazy. That's crazy. So California alone spent more money shuffling homeless people around than what I'm talking about would cost us to get all of all of the homeless people off the street permanently. Yeah, you counted 187,000 homeless. You counted 187,000 homeless in California. I counted 771,000 homeless across the United States. And based on calculations, the approximation of $22,000 per homeless person, you would be able to, at a roughly around about 23 or $24 billion, you should be able to cover all the homeless people, all of them, not just the 187,000 in California. Now, let's put those numbers in a side by side, because our current failed strategy at $83,000 per homeless person has, compared to the proven effectiveness of the solution of $22,000 a person, we would be spending far more money on a system that makes people worse than it would cost to actually solve the problem indefinitely. And that's a potential community cost reduction of 50 to 75% more that we're wasting on shuffling them around than what we would be spending on actually helping them. Crazy, right? So what would it cost to scale this up to solve the homelessness nationwide? Recent estimates suggested providing housing assistance to every person currently experiencing homelessness would require an annual investment in the range of about $20 to $27 billion, where you said that they spent that much in California. According to typical projections, a sustained investment in this level could take roughly 7 to 10 years to fully house and support the current homeless population sustainably on a permanent solution. Now, of course, success depends not just on funding, but on the long-term policy commitment and the efficient coordination of all these support systems. Now, the theory is sound. The numbers are compelling, but this isn't just an idea on a spreadsheet. The housing first model has been tested and proven successful in widely different political and economic climates. And we don't just have to guess if it works, we can just look. First, let's go to Finland. In 2008, Finland made a radical decision. They were using the same staircase model that we're using as everyone else was doing and getting the same mediocre results. So they abandoned it entirely, and a committee, as a nation, they committed to the housing first method. The systematic conversion of their temporary shelters into permanent supported housing units. Then the results were miraculous. For 11 consecutive years, homelessness consistently fell. While the country saw a small uptick in 2024 due to rising living costs and cuts to social benefits, it remains the only EU country to have achieved a sustained long-term reduction in homelessness. And rough sleeping is still virtually eliminated. And rough sleeping is just like crashing out on concrete and stuff. But that's Europe. Could it ever work in the United States? The answer to that, we'd go to Houston, Texas in 2011. Houston had one of the worst homeless populations in the nation. Then in 2012, the city and its surrounding counties went all in on the housing first. They convinced dozens of separate nonprofits to join forces under one umbrella. They created a unified real-time database to track every unhoused person. And they committed to one guiding philosophy: spend money getting people into their own apartment, not on managing them on the streets. Since they began, while homelessness has surged nationally, Houston has cut its overall homeless population by more than half. Although they've recently seen a slight increase in unsheltered individuals due to reduced shelter capacity, their overall numbers have remained remarkable, stable in a time of national crisis. Now, they have effectively ended veteran homelessness, proving that zero is an achievable number. And their success rate is remarkable. Over 90% of people who are housed remain housed after 2 years. What's the most striking is how they now handle encampments. Unlike other cities that send police to the and dump trucks over there, Houston has dismantled camps by doing something revolutionary. They found housing for every single person in the camp first. An encampment is closed only when it's empty because everyone has a home to go to. This is the compensation and compassionate efforts that effectively alters the sweep. And this is a different type of punitive sweep because the message from both Finland and Houston is the same. The problem of homelessness is solvable. It requires focus, collaboration, and the political will to abandon failed strategies. And we have the blueprint and we have the proof. The only thing missing is the collective will to follow through. And we've looked at some numbers and we've seen the evidence. The conclusion is inescapable. The multi-million-dollar mistake isn't that we're spending too much money on homelessness. It is that we are spending it in the dumbest way possible. Here's another thing that we need to think about. In order to run a $20 to $27 billion organization to completely dismantle homelessness, it would require every American person to pay between $5 and $7 a month to that government project or nonprofit project to provide the $27 billion to fund the system. Now, if you were providing $10 per person, $10 per person, over the span of the 168 million, 168 million homeless people, or 168 million Americans, or 148 million housed Americans. Let's look at that. $10 per person will put you upward of about $47 billion, between $47 and $51 billion. Now, and that's annual, which is 2 times more than what you would need to run the program, which means that not only would you have enough money to sustain the program, you would have enough money to expand the program, and you would have enough money to cover inflation towards the program. Now, here's the kicker. If every American paid $10 a month to a nonprofit that was working towards homelessness, you would see homelessness reduce within 3 to 5 years. While it took 11 years for Houston, no, it took 11 years for Finland, and over the past, since 2008, 20 years in Texas, we're looking at they're not using the nationwide budget. The fact is that if we put $50 billion aside to abolish homelessness altogether instead of criminalizing it, we would effectively do away with homelessness. And with a 90% success rate, the 10% of individuals that will go back out on the street would essentially be picked back up a second time and give it another go. A lot of times those individuals, just like going to rehab, might quit the first time. It might be too hard, too much responsibility. But the fact is that when everybody else they know that was homeless is not homeless anymore, people who see everyone else being helped will eventually realize, if you help me, I don't have to do this anymore. I can change and I can be better. Everyone else I know changed and started becoming better. I'll change and be better too. We are a bandwagon community. We follow the leader. Everyone else starts being successful. It's called a trend. When everyone else starts being successful, others who want to be in that level of success follow that same pattern. But it requires the success to be shown, not the apprenticeship to be followed. So while we are burning over 63 billion a year on a system of policing and punishment that doesn't just fail, it actively makes the problem worse, all while costing far more than the actual solution would have cost at $22,000 a person. Spending over 83,000 a year to keep a person on the streets is not fiscally uh, conservative. It's a catastrophic waste of public funds. Investing around 22,000 a year to give that same person a home and stability is not a radical fantasy. It's a proven data-driven investment that saves taxpayers money and rebuilds lives at the same time. Now, the path forward is clear, and we must demand that our leaders stop funding the mistake and start investing in the solution. And we could be looking towards nonprofits that actually work towards homelessness. I actually got one up on the top of the screen up here that works towards homelessness. And this means someone putting the effort into reallocating funds spent on uh, cycling out in camp sweeps in a most devastating and disastrous way, eliminating these arrests and reducing these incarcerations, and then redirecting them towards permanent supportive housing. It means embracing house first, not as a pilot program, but as a core of our national strategy. So instead of us throwing out this asylum bill for undocumented citizens, why don't we have an asylum bill for American citizens? Xander for 2028. This is a solvable problem, but what if we want to build a system so robust that it could end homelessness permanently? Let's go back to those numbers, and we're going to do it faster. Consider the thought of the same experiment, just like I told you a moment ago. What if every American contributed that $10 a month? With the population among 343 million people, that would generate over $41 billion a year, and that's nearly double the baseline estimated needed. And here's what that investment would buy, because I talked about it a moment ago. By doubling the annual funding from 20 to 27 billion to a range of 40 to 54 billion, projections suggest that we could slash the timelines ending homelessness from 7 to 10 years to down to 3 to 5 years, where committing of $10 a month could just solve the problem. It could solve it in less time, half the time, in fact, creating a surplus to ensure solutions to permanently eliminate the housing, covering inflation, unforeseen costs, and making sure no one ever falls through the cracks again. Because in that dynamic, not only would you have removed the homeless people, reincorporated them into society where they would be tax-paying individuals as well, you would also have a budget to aid in at-risk families. And this is where people who don't think about donating to charities that work on homelessness actually benefits them. Because if you give $10 a month to a nonprofit that is working on homelessness, and then you can't pay your rent because you were furloughed from your job, you become a candidate of the exact program you've been donating to. Because before you lose your house and become homeless, that nonprofit should swoop in after being notified and aid you in getting back afloat. If we're spending less money on homelessness and spending more money on the solution, not only is the solution feasible, because $10 a month is $120 a year. How many people went to the club this weekend and spent that much money? How many people spent $120 this week on bullshit? I'm just pointing that out. So a once a year payment of $120 to a nonprofit that is working towards homelessness is more effective than VIP at your local nightclub. It is that damn serious. Now, if this financial breakdown shocks you, don't let that feeling fade. Turn it into action. First, you got to share tonight's show with people that you know. The myth that it's cheaper to manage homelessness than to solve it is one of the biggest barriers to progress. So help us dismantle that myth by sharing the data. Second, first, second and first, you want to find and support organizations in your community that are implementing housing first. We actually have one organization that we're using. It's up here for 16 by 9. It's over here, 9 by 16. I don't know where it's at, but you can see it on the channel where we have a QR code on the long form of this video where you can take the QR code and research one of the facilities that we're aware of that works on it. And they're working in Florida and expanding across to the West Coast. But find one that is working on trying to implement housing first scenarios. They are going to be the frontline nonprofit organizations doing the work that is proven to be effective. And they're going to need your support, because before the government starts funding a nonprofit that is abolishing homelessness, the nonprofit has to start abolishing homelessness. They have to show a budget to the government and say, hey, we spent $150 million on taking 75 or 200 or 3,000 people off the streets. They would have to show that, hey, we've put up $3 million to remove 15,000 homeless people or 30,000 homeless people off the streets, and then say, give me a budget to do this in a larger scale. That's when they start getting government backed. They're not going to be government backed until they're able to show on a grand scale that not only have they done it, but they're sustaining it. Because the government doesn't solve the problems, the government pays for the problems to be solved. Even local government, like the cities and states that these nonprofits function out of, they have to show the solution to city council and then get an allocation of funds from city council to expand on it. They would have to show the results to the state council so that the state can start funding it across the state. And it requires a large quantity of what? He said, fidget with your glasses if you're into dominating, showing me who's boss. No, that's okay. We're not doing that. So we would have to go through the process of getting backed by the government. But average Americans can donate to nonprofit organizations. And when you donate over, I believe it's $300, you can get a voucher for that $300 and write it off on your taxes, which actually pays you a lot more money back for doing a good deed for somebody else. Because when you donate to a nonprofit organization and you get a voucher, that nonprofit organization is a tax deduction. So helping somebody else get off the streets. If you did donate $300, $350 a year to a nonprofit to help homeless people get off the street, and you got that voucher from that nonprofit entity, and you use those vouchers as tax write-offs, tax credits, those nonprofits would be able to effectively make change. I would go one step further. Not only would I make change, I would broadcast a change so that y'all will see where the money went. This is the homeless person that we saved this week. Get an apartment complex. This is the group of people that we've saved this week. But it takes proactive effort. He says, your plans make a lot of sense. Too bad. It's too bad that a lot of the organizations want people to change their behavior before helping them out. Exactly. You're right. And it really requires a different type of organization. It requires a type of organization that is going to put you in a place that you should take good care of, and then aid you in getting back on your feet. And if they're doing temporary housing between 18 and 24 months is between a year and a half and 2 years. And that temporary housing, you stay here for free for 2 years, and then after that, they could even lease you your current residence. But in 2 years, you got to get you a job. But that is a fantastic model. Let's get you off the street first. Get you a shower, let you spend a few days resting, bring you some food, take you down to the DMV, get your ID, take you to the Social Security office, get your Social Security card. You know, maybe try to put some paperwork together and get some of your felonies expunged off your record if they're not felony convictions or whatever the case may be. But beyond that, try to find companies that get paid grants up to $10,000 per employee that is an ex-con, and they get paid to hire you. So it's not like you can't find a job somewhere, you just don't know where to look. So get you a clean shower, get you some good clothes, and have someone bring you to a place based on your skills that will hire you because you're a felon, because they're helping rehabilitate society. There's a grant for that, so they get paid to pay you. It's a system a system of helping that helps itself. You get paid to pay for somebody else, so it's easy to help that person. See what I'm saying? If you donated $500 a year to a nonprofit, and that nonprofit mailed you the invoice for that $500, and you take that invoice and you file your taxes with it this year, as long as you donate it before December, you can use it on your next tax return in January. And in January, and any donation that you use can be rolled over up to 5 years until you've used the entire amount. But if you use that $500 tax deduction, it costs you nothing, because you would have gave that money to Uncle Sam. You would have gave that money to Donald Trump. You would have gave that $500 in taxation to Donald Trump. And Americans can get a tax deduction of, at this point after the pandemic, 100% of their money can be tax deducted if they donate it to a nonprofit organization. Just like school. So if you donated money to your kid's school and donated money to a nonprofit that is going to give you a voucher that says that you donated money, those two donations, file it with your taxes, and the money you gave away early this year, taken off of the money that you owe the government when you go to file your taxes. Your refund might be larger. Well, you get that money back. And then you take the money that you got back and you give it back to the same sources. And then it's a prestige boost, because you help fund homeless removal programs by actually eliminating permanent homelessness, and then you pay for public schools to improve public schools since the public Department of Education has been dismantled. So it's a win-win-win. The only reason why we have not done this across the board is because we're selfish. Yes, you can trust this guy. He's not here for profit. He's just here to help people, to help you. See what he's saying? Exactly. Because all of the knowledge and information that I give you guys on a regular basis from this channel is clearly free. You don't pay me a dime to get the knowledge and information that I give you. But the fact is all you have to do is put in effort to help everybody else, because it doesn't pay me for nothing. All you have to do is just learn how to look out for other folks. And then I'm telling you how not only can you look out for other folks, you get your money back for looking out for other folks. Dollar for dollar, when you donate to a nonprofit organization, you get the voucher, file it on your taxes, and then you get the money back on tax time. Damn. Which, by the way, the money you take from tax time, if you put it on that particular venture, get another voucher, how much money did you give to them the second time around? Nothing. The money you got from your tax return, you put it on your charity work, and then that charity work gave you money to put on your next tax time. Revolving door aid. But it allows that capability of putting up $120 a year towards the elimination of homelessness. It is a process where, as long as the organization isn't embezzling money like they did with the FEMA trucks, where Sarah Palin was in Texas buying shoes instead of helping people drowning in New Orleans, if the people that are involved are doing it for a good cause and effectively doing it in a way where the people will benefit, then yeah. It's not like the church that's going to have a 52-bedroom house for one preacher. It's a community that takes care of itself. It's a country that takes care of itself. It's a society that takes care of itself, which ironically It follows the communist model. It's the Star Trek model, because don't nobody like hearing the word communist. It's the Star Trek model. Everybody looks out for everybody, so nobody suffers. Nobody does without. So, if you see what I'm saying, if you take this information and you go contact your representatives, you can contact your mayor, you can contact your city council, contact your county supervisors, contact your local officials, because you know we're about to come back around for midterm elections. Show them these numbers, show them these case studies. Demand that they stop wasting your tax dollars on failed policies and policing that is criminalizing poverty, and start investing in the compassionate, fiscally responsible solution that we know works, since it worked in Texas, which is housing the homeless, not incarcerating them. Ending homelessness is not a question of resources. It is a question of priorities. And it is time that we made the smart choice, the compassionate choice, and the financially sound choice. Because when you think about the $63 billion a year that we're going to spend every year for eternity on shifting homeless people around, never doing anything about the problem, and the $54 billion at most, $47 billion at the least, that we'll be doubling down on eliminating homelessness across the country within 3 to 5 years, and then having a budget set aside for at-risk family relief. That same stimulus check that y'all got that kept yourselves from getting evicted during COVID will be the same relief that y'all will be getting when budget is tight. You lost your job, you don't got enough money, you missed a few days from work, you ain't got enough money. You showed them what your budget looked like. You showed them what your bills looked like. You showed what your paycheck looked like. You show where your money went and be like, hey. And I know some people are going to say, oh, that's very intrusive. But shit, if you showed them, if I didn't make enough money to pay my rent this month, and they pay your rent for you, you don't give a fuck. Hey, yeah, I'll show you that I don't got enough money to pay my rent if you're going to pay the bill. But now you don't lose your apartment. You don't lose your house. You don't lose your condo. What if you got into a lease to buy contract where you were buying your house, but you couldn't pay the rent to buy your house? It's not a mortgage. It's a lease to buy contract, a deed trust. They pay your rent. You can keep your house that you can will to your kids. Think about how this type of philosophy could do wonders. It's time to fix that billion-dollar mistake. I don't know why we're not thinking about it, why we've never thought about this before, but I tell y'all that when we fix problems here. I have never once jumped on this podcast and talked to you guys about an issue without providing a solution. This isn't a red pill, green pill, black pill, blue pill podcast. This is a podcast about cause and effect, uniformity, and logic and reason. And it's crazy that it is so easy to do that we just don't do it. And I don't know why. And I want to make it make sense to me why. If it's cheaper for us to do it and it's a tax deduction, why are we not just forcing the hand? The people would have to stop judging other people and just listen to logical arguments. That's right. They would have to not only do that, they would have to come to this show and hear those logical arguments, because I am the only podcast that I am aware of on YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch that is talking about making change in your personal life, making change in your financial life, making change in your society that is in the benefit of you, where you will save money on making these changes, be able to improve your life, retire early or at least on time, where you can live without stress, and you don't got to pay me to get the knowledge. Most people will sell you this information. You've been on the show with me for an hour and 47 minutes for free. The worst thing you had to deal with was an ad that popped up because you don't have YouTube Premium. But for the cost of YouTube Premium, which is like $13, $15 a month or something like that, you can send money to a nonprofit that's working on housing homeless and help the homeless people and deal with the ads. It's insane how we could figure it out. We capitalize off of the less fortunate. We capitalize off of the ignorant, the elderly. We capitalize off of the careless, you know, and it is true. Those people that um, don't want to do, they'll pay the cost to not have to do it. The people who can't do it, they'll pay the cost because they can't do it. The people who don't know what to do, they'll pay the cost to have somebody who knows how to do it for them. The people who are too old, don't know nothing else, they fall back on the reliance of. And we capitalize off of that. That's what a capitalist country is. That's what a capitalist country is. Nursing homes, big business. Depends diapers, big business. Concierge nurses, big business. Personal assistants, booming business. If you have a need, somebody is going to bill you for it. But if we were really trying to solve problems the way China can solve cancer, we could find a group of people that could fix the issue. But since we don't have that mentality, because fixing a problem means that we wouldn't have to donate money for the rest of our lives. We would be able to donate the money for 20 years at the most. And then once we have systemically eliminated poverty, after that 20-year, 25-year mark, that the remaining money that's left over should be invested in an area where it is generating the capital to become a self-sustainable entity. And if it is a self-sustainable entity, like, for example, if the program was designed to charge an elevated level of rent to those individuals, still affordable rent, but an elevated level of rent where that $10 or $20 per person comes out of the rent that they pay and goes towards the program. Well, in that situation, each homeless person that you take off the street out of the 771,000 homeless people across the country would be then contributing towards the program that took them off of the street. If a program took you from under an overpass and put you in a house or an apartment, I can guarantee you would have no problem with giving them an extra $10 a month on top of your rent to help somebody else come up off the street, to pay them back for taking you off the street. You wouldn't have a problem with it. But asking them to donate to Toys for Tots when you don't got enough food to buy SpaghettiOs to eat tonight, nah. It's a mentality problem. It is an instability problem. It is a grave issue that we have lived with for a long period of time, because again, we step over homeless people because they're homeless. We walk past them, we ignore them in public. Sometimes we entertain a conversation with them, but we know that they want money. They need money. We don't want to give them any money. But then when we end up in the exact same situation as them, we don't have the courage to swallow our pride to ask for help, because we know how we felt when we mistreated those homeless people. And now that we're homeless, we don't know what to do. And that is when desperation comes about. You know that the cost of products goes up because homeless people steal because they don't have enough money to buy it. Panhandlers, they can buy some of the things that they need, but a lot of times they steal stuff because they can't afford to buy stuff. They don't have enough money to go a long enough way. They got storage units that make a ton of money off of homeless people, because homeless people live out of storage units because that's the safest place to be. 24-hour facilities. We can make a lot of change just by thinking about what the core problem is and then putting our efforts into it. He said China is amazing how they cure diabetes and cancer. They have not gotten rid of the homelessness yet. He said person blue eating spaghetti. All right. So that was a very tough concept to come across. I really appreciate you guys for hanging in with us, for those of you that stayed with us. I want to start off by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I provide y'all with the information on the show to help y'all become more successful. helping y'all become higher value men by taking the information that I give you on this channel. If you use it to change the things in your life that you don't like, that are inside of your control, then you can find yourself with a better life. People who say that society sucks, it only sucks because you don't do anything to make your society better. Something as simple as $10 a month, not $10 a day, $10 a month, could over 10 years change the entire society, right? And when you think about that, you think about how another $10 a month could make another change in your society that would make the society so much better. So all it really takes is for you to find the things that are inside of your control and put your efforts into making those changes. Then navigate around the things that you cannot control. Ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, you also can take this information and help yourselves become higher value women. And then when you're looking for a partner, you find somebody with the same values that you have, and then you have somebody that you can grow and learn with. Yeah, he said we value we value your time always, and I value your time. I really appreciate you guys swinging through here. That's why sometimes I'm here late, but I'm here every night. While we do not let the sun rise without going live, we always go live every night. We just don't start on time. There's something wrong with the politicians that they cannot figure it out. That's because the politicians are focusing on something else. Some of the policies that Donald Trump has performed, and I wasn't always agree with what he was starting, but he's the if you recognize that the program that existed was being mistreated, abused, he's dismantling the program. People don't like the fact that he dismantled some of these programs because people are benefiting from what was left of the program. But the fact is that if the largest majority of the people are not benefiting from that program and he dismantles that program, he can take that budget and put it towards something else. Now, I'm not a big advocate of Trump, but at the end of the day, business is business. And when he makes money-making decisions and I look at those money-making decisions, I'm like, well, shit, if I was sitting in his chair, I probably would have made the same decision. Because why do they have $120 million of HUD money not being used for HUD houses? Like that could have easily built a bunch of houses or a bunch of apartment complexes. You know, how did Elon Musk find like $200 billion worth of money that was not being properly utilized by the government? And it was money that was in some situations not being wasted. It was in frozen accounts because the people who knew that that money existed were no longer in the authoritative position to utilize that money, and nobody else knew that money existed. So money was just lingering, unused. And we're wondering where our $30 trillion worth of debt is getting paid from. So the politicians have their agendas, and a lot of times their agendas are whatever their lobbied investors tells them their agendas are. So homelessness has never been on any political person's agendas. And as a result, nobody is voting to do away with homelessness. It is unlikely, even if I decided that I was going to run for president, it is unlikely that I would even make my name on a ballot because people don't care about homelessness until they start risking homelessness, until they start becoming a month and a half behind on their rent. That's when they start caring about homelessness. But too many times in recent years, because between 2019 and 2022, half of the country was dealing with homelessness. Over 150 million evictions was pending, where executive orders were put in place to put a stay on, freeze on evictions to prevent people from becoming homeless. Were those same Americans who were able to work it out, move before the eviction was pushed through, relocated, and did not end up being homeless, but almost a million more people are still homeless. 771,000 people are still homeless. And they stay homeless because they don't have a way out. You say, I like this big screen format better. Exactly. And since you're looking at the big screen format, then you're looking at that right there, the QR code, which will take you to one of the sites that I know of that actually works on stuff like this. He said, we need to build better apartments. Well, the landlord that has a property that is utilizing a property for capital does not have an operating procedure where the management company is obligated to take a large quantity of the budget and put it towards enhanced repairs. When people focus on increasing profits and reducing expenses cuts the budget. And when you cut the budget, you cut the repair budget, you cut the maintenance man budget. And when you would cut the maintenance man budget, you don't have enough maintenance men to do the repairs, even if you have the budget to pay for the repairs. If you take 40% of your income and put it towards repairs, you are sacrificing potential profits in order to make sure that you have top quality apartments. If you're not in it for the money, the quality of your product is going to be better than what it would be if you're in it for the money. And then with competitive pricing, you would not only be trying to provide top quality apartments, you would also be trying to do it cheaper than the competitor, which means you're not going to be making as much money as the competitor because you're going to spend more money on repairs and get paid less money from the tenant. You would have a larger quantity of tenants, but unless the largest majority of your tenants are Section 8 and HUD tenants, where the government pays their rent for them, you're not guaranteed the money. If like the building was like a mini city that had all business needs in that building, that would be good ideas. Well, Dylan, mini homes have become a thing, which we used to call them efficiencies. You have a kitchen, living room, bedroom, bathroom, all in the same probably 50 to 100 square foot space. Single person facility. You could take a 10-acre piece of property with a 100 square foot house and potentially put, what do we have? 5,000 square feet is a mile. How many acres are in a mile? I don't remember. But you could potentially put 40 of those, ideally, on an acre of property. Maybe 10 or 20 of them if you're going to put driveways in between each one of them and a street in there and mailboxes and stuff. And on a 9-acre piece of property, you could actually build a small city of mini homes, and you can use maybe 1 acre of that 9 acres to put big buildings of all of the dominant resources that would be provided to the quantity of mini homes. Now, mini homes are not cheap. Elon Musk and a few other people were making mini homes, and mini homes can be as much as $72,000 per mini home. It is cheaper than a $250,000 house. But if you were building $50,000 to $100,000 mini homes, let's say $50,000 per mini home, and that is a one-time buy, not an annual salary, and you bought 20 of them, that would be $1 million worth of mini homes for 20 people. That would never have to be spent again, right? Now, remember we said about $27 billion would fix this problem. Well, I just told you that $1 million would house, using mini homes, 20 people. So $100 million would serve 200 people. So $1 billion would serve about 20,000 people. Now, if you march that up, you could get to somewhere to the magnitude of 700,000 people using mini homes for under $20 billion. And if you invested in the mini home stock before you bought all those properties, your shares would boom. The Bennett Tower in Whittier, Alaska, has 300 people that live in it. It has all the city business in this one building built in 1957. Well, China does the same thing. They have certain floors that are businesses and certain floors that are apartments. And in a 5-story or 10-story building, you might have 3 or 4 floors of businesses, and the other 7 floors is apartments. And yes, that actually can be very effective, where one building of that magnitude might cost $5 or $7 million to build, but you would not only be able to provide housing, you would also be able to provide jobs, and you would also be able to provide resources, convenience stores, utility companies, whatever the case may be, that would allow the people that live in that building to benefit, laundromats, stuff to that effect, which would be fantastic inside the building. And if you had a dozen of those buildings in a general facility, you would have a larger quantity of resources easily accessible in a newly developed community, because you'll be building from the ground up the housing developments that would benefit from the businesses that are being developed in that exact same building. That is a fantastic idea. We just don't do that. China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, they stack up. In America, we stack out. We talking about some quarter mile between me and my nearest neighbor. In Taiwan, you can open a window and high five your neighbor. You know, in China, you might tap on the wall 3 times and the neighbor come and open your door and come and sit down and have dinner. Your downstairs neighbor in China might hear all the footsteps and come upstairs and let themselves into your house because they hear everybody having dinner. How do you think they fit 4 billion people in such a small space? They stack up. It's something that we haven't thought about. But yeah, you do have a fantastic idea. You do have a fantastic idea. And if we thought like this, if we had more brilliant minds like you in Congress, in Washington, in local cities and states, in politicians that were working towards the benefit of everyone else, not just the benefit of themselves, maintaining their social status in their government and political position, we would see better change, which is one of the reasons why we are supposed to change all of our political parties every year to every 2 years. All of them. Not move them from one seat to the next, like get rid of everybody and put a whole new group of people in there. Matter of fact, these days, if we was to set a cap that you can't be in Congress after 35, some folks get forced into retirement. Like, we would get rid of, if you set an age limit where they got to retire at 40, I can tell you, well, I wouldn't be able to make it into Congress, but everybody would be gone, because I can tell you that the majority of the people in Congress are old as fuck. They've been there since they was 20. And nobody has stepped up to take their seat. So they just do musical chairs in the Senate and the House. But it's the same people every year. That's why we don't see change, because we don't make any change. But that's all I have for you guys for tonight. One more thing. We're gonna cover this. He says there needs to be an age limit, or at least term limits, like 10 years is a good amount of time. There are 2-year term limits, but the thing is that it is 2 years in this chair. So the loophole is that they can go from being a House member to being a Senate member, and then go back from being a Senate member back to being a House member. Because as long as they're still in politics, they just got to get voted in somewhere. And because most of us don't vote, or we don't care who gets in, it's not hard for them to keep their position. So while there is a time limit, which is why we vote every year, every 2 years, the fact is that if nobody else runs for that seat, guess who gets the seat? Person sitting in it, which means I can keep this seat for 20 years because nobody knows I'm sitting here. But if somebody challenged my seat every year, and we deliberately voted for the person we didn't know, we would have a new person sitting in that chair every year, every 2 years. If instead of it being a popularity contest and we voted for the person that we were most familiar with in our political campaigns, if we voted for the person we knew nothing about, we would see more change. Do you think that a lot of these problems in society would be easy to fix? Nancy finally retired. I think that it is not easy to fix a lot of the problems that we have in our society because the people with the most authority over the resolution do not want to compromise. I believe that one of the biggest reasons why we are in the problems that we're in is because just like the shutdown, people don't want to compromise. If it makes sense, the majority of the room should be trying to see it through. And if it doesn't make sense, then we shouldn't be trying to do it. But at the end of the day, if it makes sense and we don't agree with it, it don't matter if we don't agree with it. It makes sense. Change is needed. The way things used to be cannot continue whether we like it or not. So now we're in a position to say, look, let's try something different. I don't have to like what it is, but it must be different than what we've already been doing. Because what we've been doing has never worked. We've always complained about it. We don't like it. We always vote in somebody new, but nothing ever changes. We need to do something different. And when we start doing different things, we start getting different outcomes. But when we get different outcomes, we compare the outcome to the expected result. And if that outcome ain't good enough, we change again. And we change again. And we keep changing until we find a satisfactory solution. But not before we do something different. I appreciate y'all. FX Trader, Dylan, Michael, I really appreciate y'all coming to tonight's show. I see you over there, Steven, watching me on Twitter X. Danny Steffen watching us on Twitch. Mr. Pibbs, I really appreciate you guys for coming to the show. Thank y'all for coming to this and that. I'm going to start getting the rest of the shows up for the upcoming week so that y'all can start hitting those notification buttons on those upcoming shows. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity. That's my personal command. I'm not surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.